Welcome back to Champion Secrets. The question we're addressing in this episode is, how do I properly warm up for my match? For a great badminton warm-up, there are 3 components. The first component is a general physical warm-up that's really important in order to get your body and your muscles and your ligaments and all the little tendons ready to go. Badminton is an extremely stressful sport on your body. It requires a lot of dynamic lunges and jumps, and we've all been there where we haven't done the correct warm-up and we pay the price for it, because that's how we get injured and that's how we can twist our ankles and have long-lasting negative repercussions. So I can't emphasize enough how important a proper warm-up is. So that first warm-up phase is very general. I remember at some tournaments, when you get through further and further to the semifinals, finals, your body is so tired that I have even had it, and I've seen lots of top players have this as well, where the warm-up begins with a walk. Simply walking is enough to get the muscles going. You've got so much stiffness and residual lactic acid built up in your body that just to get the blood flowing, you need to just start at a walk. And everybody's different. Some days you feel fresh, and especially I used to love competing in Asia because there's so much humidity and so much heat that the muscles feel much more limber than when warming up in cold climates like Northern Europe and North America. So listen to your body, and that's going to tell you how much warm-up you're going to need as well. But some general warm-ups that I like to start with, other than worst case scenario where even just walking is enough to begin with, a slight jog, a very light run, where you're just getting the muscles going. I like to carry my racket so that I can multitask and shake out my wrist a little bit and just get familiar with my grip before I'm going to be playing. So there's lots of varieties of running. I like to get my students to do at least 6 different running styles before we step onto the court. So that can be regular running, that can be side-to-side shuffling, that can be crossovers where you're crossing one foot in front and then behind. That can be butt kicks where you're working the hamstring to kick up this way. That can be knees up where you're pulling the knees up and stretching out the hip flexors. And that can be also just some simple lunge movements to get the legs ready for that most common movement on the badminton court. After you've done, say, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes of light movement, then you're ready to do some dynamic stretches. So in order to stretch out for badminton, we use every single muscle pretty much from our head to our toes. So I like to start either at the top or the bottom to make sure I do a thorough preparation. So either starting at the ankles, getting everything, even in the feet. There's so many different muscles in our feet that we use on the court, and you wouldn't even know it. There are hundreds of muscles, and it's important to get all of them flowing and ready to go. Then up into the knees, getting the joints, not just the muscles, but also the joints loosened. You don't want to do anything that's going to cause you pain though. When you're warming up, there should be absolutely no pain. Sometimes if you're doing a proper stretching session, you might feel a little more pressure in the stretch, but that's not something you want to do before you play. You just want a light hold, and we call it dynamic stretching because you can bounce a little bit with it just to increase the movement range a little bit. So we can do this one to help with the calves. And then we can bend the knee to get the Achilles going. There's a whole bunch of different stretches you can do, and you learn the ones that work best for your body and your specific target areas. This is a great one for stretching out the quads, because not only does it stretch the quads, but actually what people don't realize, and a great physical trainer pointed this out to me, is that this is actually working the ankle more than anything. This is getting the ankle balance going. And almost every top badminton player has at some point in their career gone over on their ankle, because our ankles are so vulnerable when we're doing so much side to side and fast movements. So making sure the ankles are strong and ready to go before we play is key. Then we move up into the hips, making sure that's all limber, and the upper body, shoulders, and lastly, the neck, and making sure that all the details, the small things, the fingers, the wrists, everything's ready to go. Then we can step on the court. And this is a common mistake that lots of people make when they want to get to the badminton court and maybe they show up a little late and they want to just jump on the court and start hitting right away. That is a common way to get injured. So I strongly advise to, even if you're a couple minutes late for your training and your court time's already started, put in the effort, take the 5 minutes to do a little bit of movement and some dynamic stretching. You'll thank me for it later because it will prevent a lot of injuries down the road. Once you've done that first stage warm-up and you're ready for the next stage on the court, it's important that you start out with easy shots. A lot of kids that I coach will go out and they want to start out with their jump smash. They want to start out with their full power clear. But this is a very dangerous thing to do because it can shock your shoulder before you're ready to hit those shots. So I like to suggest starting out with some easy flat shots, getting the wrists going, some drives back and forth, adding a little movement in your feet, but also making sure your wrist and finger muscles are activated. So once you get your wrists going and some easy clears going, then you can step it up with your partner, if it's doubles, or your opponent that you're warming up with, if it's singles, and increase the speed slowly. Start doing some patterns, maybe smashing, then the other blocks, lifting, then your opponent smashes to warm up both your offense and your defense. Once all your shots are feeling ready to go, then there's the final phase, which is about making sure your mind and your muscles are ready to go full speed. A common mistake that amateur players do, and something that the pro players are really aware of, is that when 0-0 comes, when the match begins, you have to be as ready as you would be at 20-all or 29-all in the third set. It's so important that you're sharp, both physically and mentally, when the game begins, especially with the rally point system, because there are no points to waste. You want to be ready and get the edge on your opponent right from 0-0. So what I like to do, and you'll see a lot of pro players if you watch matches on TV or get the chance to see it live, is you'll see them a couple minutes before the game begins doing some shadow movements, just some very explosive, fast movements around the court where they're just sharpening up, getting their minds and their muscles ready to do those very powerful movements, because those are the ones that can be the most damaging when it comes to injuries. Those very fast twitch movements to the front or the jumps going up. Your muscles have to be ready for that. Now, if you don't have time or you're not playing at the highest level and you don't feel like you need that last phase of warm-up, then you can focus just on phase 1 and 2. But at the minimum, it's really important that you get some focus on both those first phases. And if you're a competitive player or wanting to be, then add in that third phase. You'll notice a huge improvement in the quality of your game, especially those first half of the game or even the first set. You'll notice a high level of play right from the start if you focus and get a strong warm-up. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next episode.